Welcome to the Azura Media Club, home of the bad girl Coven. I'm your Coven leader, Emily, and here today we're talking about Oppenheimer. Let's go. Alright. So Oppenheimer by Christopher Nolan, he directed it. Another one of his movies. Really, I lost a lot of interest in his movies after Inception. Inception was the last one I really even cared that much about. And, even that was just it's pretty good, I don't really buy into all the hype around Inception, ironically enough, because the concept for the book that I'm writing is very similar to Inception in a lot of ways. In a lot of ways, it's not the same thing at all, but a lot of people hear it and they're like, oh, that's just like Inception. And I'm like, yeah, I guess a little bit, but it's so much bigger than Inception's idea. Anyway, point being, that was the last Christopher Nolan movie that I really, really cared about. The Dark Knight trilogy is great, and I loved that, and it was really good. The Batman Begins, one of my favorite movies of all time. The Dark Knight is just so very good, and yeah, and the Dark Knight Rises is it's pretty all right. It's okay. So. Yeah, so, I saw Tenet, I didn't really care that much about Tenet, it was okay. That's my review of this movie, too, it's okay. I went to see it with my mom and my brother, I was talking to them, and really, I really don't care that much. Okay, this is going to make me sound like a bad person. I don't care that much about all this, atomic bomb stuff. I'm just so over hearing about it at this point. In college, they made us watch that atomic bomb movie, a bunch of times. And I'm like, yeah, I get it. A lot of people died. It was very important to history. But this is all we focus on in history is all the bad stuff. When are we going to talk about the good stuff? Is there any good stuff to talk about? No, because nobody wants to talk about that because they're so focused on talking about the bad stuff, all the war and the death and stuff. And it's like, yeah, that's important too, but guess what's also important? Love and support and caring about people. When's any of that stuff get reported on or shown in history, It doesn't, because that's all very personal connections. Death is impersonal in a lot of ways. That's what we record history by, the winners, the victors, right? Well, it shouldn't be that way. I mean, I want to hear about the other stuff. I want to hear about the stories of these people, why it matters, I guess the numbers are cold, it's not, there's nothing to be connected to there. I get that they were people, they were humans, that's sad and bad and terrible, but that's my point, is I just hate that that's a thing in the world, that we're so focused on destruction and death, and I think the movie plays on that in a lot of ways. First of all, the movie's 3 hours long. It doesn't need to be 3 hours long. Christopher Nolan makes just super long movies. That's another thing that really annoys me about him. He's kind of a James Cameron in that regard. At least his movies are okay and they're very watchable, and there's usually some nice twists and elements, and James Cameron has just lost all sense of anything, at this point. So I don't even know how to help him. At least Christopher Nolan, I could see maybe getting somewhere, getting back to being good again. But it's just I imagine he's just making the movies he wants to make at this point. He's got that Batman Inception money, and he's just all right. And these movies are always successful. Christopher Nolan's on the title as a director. It's he's gonna get a lot of people in the seats, and that's just how it is, But I'm a little over his movies, I guess, is my point. Especially what his movies stand for. These big 3-hour movies that people are just well, it's Christopher Nolan. He's gonna say something important. And I'm just no, he's not. I mean, maybe. I don't know. Maybe. But not likely, And a lot of people could probably take this movie and be I got a lot out of this movie. But another thing we were discussing, me, my brother, and my mom, was the impersonalness of the movie. You don't really connect to any of the characters because the characters aren't there for you meant to connect with. You're you're meant to see most of them as kind of neutral or explicitly bad people. In the case of our main here, spoilers for Oppenheimer. Not that it matters. Don't go see the movie. It's not that great. You know what? Go see the movie. I don't fucking know. If you want to see it, go see it. I'm not going to turn you off of it, but I'm just going to tell you what I thought. I don't think it's worth going and investing in and paying this man money to make more mediocre movies, you know? Anyway. Yeah, so the main thing is the titular character Oppenheimer was the man that made this like atomic bomb, and you know they talk about the hydrogen bomb in there and stuff, and so he's responsible for all this death and destruction. And he really doesn't confront the fact that this is what it's gonna do up until when the bomb drops, and then he kind of realizes, oh shit, this isn't just theory anymore. We did it, and this is bad, you know? I killed people. Blood is on my hands, or whatever. And the president, Truman, who apparently is Gary Oldman, and I didn't realize that at all, says, oh, he's such a crybaby, whatever, you know, like, yeah, fuck that guy. Fuck everyone in this movie, actually. So we don't really have... The only, like, main character we have is, like, Oppenheimer. You know, it's like we follow his story, and the movie is all about him and his consequences of his actions and everything, but he never really gets to feel like a character. It's all told as, like, a sort of documentary. And they cut between times and stuff. I always hate it when they do that and stuff. It's like, it's so hard to keep up with, you know, that kind of stuff. It's like... It can be done well, but this is just like, it's just confusing a lot of times, you know? It's like, I'm more of the fan of a straightforward timeline and narrative to your story. I mean, it's cool because it lets you do certain things and set up certain things and stuff. I just don't know if it's done to great effect here. I just don't really care. After, you know, after so long, you just kind of check out. And to be fair, I never really checked out with the movie, but there were a lot of moments where I was just... Maybe I did. Maybe I kind of just did check out. Never mind. I did kind of just check out sometimes. But I was there. I was watching the movie. It's just... It really... The whole movie, here's what it boils down to. There's 3 acts. Each act is an hour, basically. They set up him meeting all of the people, him establishing... Oppenheimer, that is. Establishing things and theories and showing his journey to get to kind of where the initial setup for this bomb is. And then the second part is all about how it gets made and how up until like when it actually is there, done, made. And then the third part is all about after they've blown up this, you know, Hiroshima in Japan, what are the consequences of that? What's the fallout? What's the morals and philosophy behind how much death I just caused, you know? And investigating political corruptness within the board, and this guy betrays this guy and all this shit. It's just like, I don't care, you know? It's like, I like, it seems like it could have been an interesting premise, but it's just done in such a non-fiction light, you know, in the sense that we don't really get to connect to certain characters, you know? And even non-fiction can have character stuff, but then it's not really non-fiction if you're embellishing a little bit. But, you know, I don't know. Where's the line, right? It's kind of the same problem I had with a movie like Lincoln, you know? Like, when I went to see Lincoln before, I'm like, oh, yeah, you know, in theory, I love Abraham Lincoln and all he's done for the country and whatever. And then it's just like, I'm sitting there like, oh, this is boring, you know? Like, me and my dad went to see that, because I used to love history, and I do love history in a lot of ways. I love the interesting parts of history. To me, war and death and destruction, that's not the interesting stuff. You know, and people were like, how dare you? How dare you not care that all these people died and stuff? And it's like, I care, I just I'm kind of over it, you know? Like, I didn't know any of those people. It's not that history needs to be all about people I know, but like, get me invested in your history, you know? I want to be part of the narrative, you know? I want to feel like I get what's going on and why this is significant. And I get it, like, a lot of people died, but it's like, that's all that history is ever about, is a lot of people died, you know? And it's like, yeah, I get it. Can we focus on some positive? Like, me and my mom were having a conversation just yesterday about, well, technically it was about aliens and ancient Egypt and whatnot, but like, ancient Egypt, isn't it cool that they built the pyramids and like the Sphinx and stuff, and like, did they even build it? Like, you know, that's a whole other thing, because like around the Sphinx you can see the walls are degraded to where it could have even been a time far before the Egyptians and stuff. So like, that's the kind of interesting I find, or that history I find interesting, is that kind of stuff, like uh technical marvels of the past, and like, how did they do these things, and uh who were these people, and these important people, and not all just about this death and destruction. I mean, we always focus on that, you know? Video games focus on that, movies focus on that. It's all about that. That just seems kind of senseless to me. And not that it was pointless, but the point was solely fighting between each other, and I'm not a big fan of fighting. Uh, you know, I'll do it in video games and stuff, but like, God, just in the real world, there's too much fighting. And I know that's such a simplistic thing. It's like, hey, can't we all just stop fighting, man? Like, I'm not some kind of hippie or something. I know that's not realistic, but at the end of the day, that's what I would just like, you know? Peace. And it's what everyone wants, right? But it's like, how do we do that? Well, first we gotta stop squabbling over, like, fucking resources and stuff. And I don't know, it's a whole other conversation. But I'm just saying, like, so many things and so many successful things focus on bad things like that. And I get it, you need conflict in your story, but I get so bored by this stuff. Like, I've already heard about it like a million times. Now, have I heard about this Oppenheimer guy like a million times? No, not particularly, but I don't really think they took an interesting angle with it at all. I mean, I didn't see anything too interesting in there, you know? It's like I said, I wasn't like super engaged. I appreciate the filmmaking. I do. I think that works. Like I said, the 3-act structure, and they actually kind of have a good 3-act structure there. The effects are good, you know, all that stuff. The soundtrack is like okay. I've heard way better. But when it comes down to it, it's kind of interesting too, because like I felt like a lot of the Batman characters are really good. Even the Inception characters I always thought were pretty decent. You kind of got where they were coming from. In this movie, it's less so. And that's where the disconnect kind of comes in for me. And part of why I just didn't really like the movie that much or connect with the movie. Like I said, I appreciate the filmmaking, and I appreciate how much work that is, and I guess all the big name actors. There were so many actors in here. Gary Oldman, apparently. You know, like Oppenheimer's that Cillian Murphy guy, I think. You know, he was like the Scarecrow in the Batman Begins. Actually, in all 3 movies he was in. One of my favorite villains in those movies, you know. But yeah, Matt Damon was in there. Matt Damon. He was in there. Josh Peck was in there for like 5 seconds. That was kind of funny to see. I kind of knew that from, like, I'd heard that in a video or something, but he's in there for like a couple minutes. So, interesting to see him in there. I don't know, there's a bunch of other actors in there. The guy from Stranger Things, you know, Papa from Stranger Things or whatever. I don't, what's his name? I don't fucking remember. Who cares? It's late. I'm sorry. It's late. It's like, yeah, it's late. I'm just trying to get this fucking review done with. Trying to think what we were even talking about. I don't know, just like that. That's really the main issue I had with it. I just couldn't connect to it much. And call me crazy, but it's just like, I'm so over this history kind of stuff, you know, of like learning about, and I guess it's interesting because it's like the whole thing is like, yeah, like we didn't know. Maybe when we set off this atomic bomb, the world just blows up, you know, or goes to shit, or maybe because we did it, other countries are gonna do it, and then we're just gonna have a nuclear war, or like deterrence and all that. All that stuff's pretty interesting. I mean, I like Metal Gear Solid. That's my favorite franchise of all time. You know, stuff. It's interesting to think about, but I'm kind of over thinking about it. You know, what am I gonna gain by thinking about nuclear war and the fact that we could be wiped out at any second? Everyone's like, oh, it's so serious, and it's like, yeah, I get it, but I can't stop it. You think I have anything to do to stop that? Why don't I just go and live my life, you know? I guess you can say that the movie promoted the dangers of nuclear war and why that's bad and everything. But yeah, I mean, that's a pretty simplistic uh, thing to take away. You know, I had more takeaways during, but it's just, I don't know. I don't even know if it's worth really thinking about or getting into too deeply, because it's just like, at the end of the day, it's just kind of just kind of an movie. And for 3 hours of my time, and I know I harp on this a lot, but like seriously, for 3 hours of my time, you've got to do really good. I think the longest movie I would feasibly watch and be like, this was really worth my 3 hours. And I don't even think it is 3 hours. I think it's like 2:45 or something, but it's close, you know, is like Inglourious Basterds, which I think is a great movie. And I'd love to review that at some point, even though that's kind of about history. But they take a fun spin on history at the end there. And that's why I think that one works, is because you have a lot of different characters that you actually are invested and care about. And it's not taking itself so seriously, like, this is how it actually happened, or blah, blah, blah. You know, not that he was, like, trying to document what actually happened, but, like, I feel like in a lot of ways he was. He didn't really have characters. He had caricatures of characters, you know, in a sense. And I don't know. I just, maybe Christopher Nolan's, like, strong suit isn't, like, writing characters. I don't know. I know it, like, his effects and all of that. That's kind of what propels him, you know, into the next generation. But people keep seeing the movies. Apparently people like this. I'm just not as big of a fan. It just didn't connect with me, you know? I'm not to say it's a bad movie. It's just not really what I'm interested in seeing, you know? And I think that's what it kind of comes down to. Technically, it's a fucking great movie, and I'm sure in the right hands, a lot of people would like it. You know, it's just not a movie for me. So, yeah. So, I mean, that's really what it comes down to at the end of the day. I just didn't like it that much because it was not a movie for me. Technically, I think it's a good movie, and people would enjoy it. And I didn't hate it or anything. I thought, like I said, I thought a lot of the aspects of it were good, and I feel like the premise and the ideas there were good, and the telling of the story was good enough. I mean, I just didn't connect with it. I don't really like or care about the source material we're going with here. You know, or I'm over it. I care, but I don't want to be thinking about it all the time. You know, that's the thing. That's what it comes down to. And I know I'm getting off track again here, but it's like, what it comes down to is, at the end of the day, I don't want to be thinking about death and destruction all the time. Not that I'm saying I won't think about death, because I know I'm going to die someday, but from a quote from a fucking perfect show, anything in the universe can be 104% perfect, and The Good Place is certainly one of them. So a quote from that show: everyone knows that they're gonna die, and we just live life knowing that, and that's it. That's kind of the deal, you know? You just live with it. You learn about death when you're young, and you just kind of know that's gonna happen someday. And, you know, I'm not looking forward to it, but, like, hey, you know, if it's by nuclear bomb or slipping on an ice cube in a salty spittoon or whatever, so be it. I've got a lot more living to do, hopefully, but you know, when it's time, and I've just kind of faced that. Uh, is it really sad and tragic what happened to those people in Hiroshima? Absolutely. You know, but I can't do anything about it. You know, it's not like I can change that. What's past? It's in the past. You know, history did it. I know about that now, so I don't have to help repeat it. I guess not that I would ever be in a position to help repeat that. You know, so I don't know. I don't know what the point of that is, but my point is, I know. I get it. I get it. Like, what he did was bad. Obviously, we all know that. You know, death is bad, but life is worth living, and I think life is what the movie was missing. You know what I mean? Like, that's really what it comes down to. I mean, you see parts of this guy's life, but it's not about that. It's about all of this scientific stuff and about this nuclear bomb and stuff. It's about all of that. You don't get to see the character behind all of that, you know? And it's because the guy never was a character beyond all of that. Like, you kind of see it, but he's just like kind of a womanizing piece of shit, and he's got like kids and stuff. Like, I don't know. He's just not a good guy, you know? In a lot of ways. But he does feel remorse for what he did. So, I mean, that's something, you know? Maybe he can grow. And in another good place way, you know, that's kind of what it's all about. He can grow and learn from his mistakes. And he did. And that was a thing that he did later in the movie. He went and actively lobbied against, you know, further nuclear bombs and stuff. But too little too late. You already made the one, you know? And people were trying to stop him beforehand, and he's just like, no, you know, he realized too late that he'd fucked up, so. Oops. You know, like, I guess that's what it comes down to. I don't know. So, it was alright. I thought it was okay. Like I said, I didn't enjoy it I didn't, not that I didn't enjoy it I just didn't connect with it that much. So it diminished my enjoyment of it. So therefore, but in the right hands, in more caring, or like if you're really into these topics, or I don't know, if you really connected with it, that's great. You know, I'm sure there's people out there who really like. I know there's people out there who really like this movie. Like most people really like this movie, but for me, it's just kind of like a 5 out of 10 kind of movie. Perfectly in the middle, you know, so I just don't really care. And I know that's probably blasphemous. People are like, 5 out of 10, that's terrible. It's like, no, it's not terrible. I mean, it's not great, but it's not, you know, it's not bad. It's just kind of in the middle, you know. It's another Christopher Nolan movie. Bubbles, you know, like. So, anyway. That's it. That's all I gotta say about it. So, yeah. Don't forget to subscribe to join the Bad Girl Coven. You know, never forget, magic comes from the heart. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Emily out.